Hello, everyone, and welcome to this second episode of our summer sessions of the Conscious Woman podcast. So today, I welcome Vidhi Sadana. Vidhi is a yoga therapist, and she lives and works in London, UK. Hi, Vidhi. How are
Hi,
you?
thank you for having me here.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. So I want to share with people your bio because, I just want to introduce you to them. And then you'll see that her bio already is quite impressive, but then we're going to dive in and it's going to be even more interesting. Just in case you wonder what being a yoga therapist is, which is Vidhi's job and work, what this means is that she works in a way that's individualized with people who want to improve their health and their quality of life through the tools of yoga, which is obviously not just postures and breathing like we often think, but also introspection, mantras, visualizations, and many tools like that. So Vidhi, she is a yoga researcher within the NHS, which is the National Health Service, for those of you who are not British and don't know. And she conducted the first ever in the UK yoga therapy study for people with rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease, and anxiety. She also teaches future doctors at the Imperial College School of Medicine about why and how to refer patients to yoga therapy, and including, for example, for chronic conditions. She has published a number of articles in peer-reviewed journals. She is passionate about integrating yoga into the healthcare systems. And in order to do that, in the best possible way in the UK, she even decided to go back to university to take a Master of Science in Public Health. And her vision is to take yoga therapy to an even wider scale, including in organizations such as the World Health Organization. So in addition to all of this, she also works one-on-one with people in various settings for stress disorders, anxiety disorders, chronic pain, recovery and rehab, back pain, sleep disorders, etc. She is also a mentor to other yoga teachers, and she is a Vedic chant teacher. Woohoo! I'm so impressed with, by all that you do, and beyond that, by your passion for yoga, really. And so we got to know each other, just letting people know how we know each other. We got to know each other because I happen to have done a yoga teacher training in this same tradition that you are practicing, which is the lineage of Vini Yoga, as taught by Krishnamacharya and Desikachar and Kaustubh Desikachar. And so that's how we got in touch initially. But to be honest, what I am most impressed with is, beyond your bio, is actually my experience of working with you. So I have actually asked Vidhi to be my yoga therapist, to support me with my yoga practice. And so she gave me practices. So how you work with yoga therapy, for those of you who don't know about this, is you receive from your yoga therapist, you receive a yoga practice that's just for you, and that you're going to practice every day or a few times per week, and always like in respect of your capacity. And so I've been practicing yoga for about 10 years, and I have a daily practice. And it really struck me when I started working with Vidhi, really how it supported me with the stress issues that I was having, and just the conditions that I was having. And I felt that she really got me, like when I first did the practices that she sent me, I felt that she really got me in the way that was very special and profound. And so that's why when I put together this series, I thought I want to have her because I want to talk about how do we, especially as women, how do we access and express our full vitality and our power? So this is what I want us to talk about today, Vidhi. Are you ready?
Yes, you forgot one thing about my bio.
Oh, what did I forget? Tell me.
I'm a single mom of 2.
Plus, she's a single mom of 2. Can you believe? Yes.
And a human being.
And a human being. Awesome. Absolutely. And we are definitely going to talk about it actually, very soon, because it does matter to do all that you do, plus have kids, plus, and this is part of what can be really challenging for many women. Okay, so let's dive in. And my first question to you was, I'd like to share with us and those who are listening, about your life journey. So basically, what brought you to yoga and what made you decide to really make this your life's work, essentially?
So, again, thank you for having me here. My life journey with yoga began, I would say, 2 decades back. Actually, I've been doing yoga for all my life. I've grown up in India since I was a little girl. We used to do yoga and pranayama in the parks. My uncle used to teach. My mum used to do yoga philosophy. So it's been part of my life throughout. But to become a yoga teacher and a therapist, my journey began when I was 2 decades back. But before that, I suffered with an immune system disorder, which I was 22, and my body completely collapsed, and I couldn't walk, I couldn't sit up, and I happened to have an autoimmune disorder. And being me, I was also a runner, a squash player at that time. And so it really hugely impacted my life because I couldn't walk. So Western medicine came in to help. It helped me at least to get my condition into remission. But I was sick. I was sick all the time. Any stresses that would come in my life, I would have a relapse and then go back into medication. And this cycle was going on for a good 10 years. And within that 10 years, I also got married, came to England, and had a high-flying job as a merchandiser with Marks and Spencer in the head office.
Wow.
But every Christmas time, when the retail stress levels go up, I would have a relapse and I would be hospitalized. So that was like my cycle. And I just thought, this is it. I need to do something about it. And I was doing a bit of yoga just for myself. But I decided that I would become a yoga teacher and to become a yoga therapist. So I didn't want to be only yoga teacher. I wanted to use yoga as a therapeutic tool. And I found all the sources which would teach yoga therapy, and it all led me back to T. Krishnamacharya. And I decided to study from the source and start going back to Chennai to study with Menika Desikachar and with Kaustav Desikachar and a bit of Mr. Desikachar as well, just for a module. So that was my turning point. That was the place where I found, I won't say cure, but I found tools to manage myself. And since then, I've had 2 babies. Doctor said I can never have babies, and I've had 2 babies, and that too naturally. And I haven't gone back to the hospital since then. So,
Wow.
haven't had a relapse or I do take very tiny medication still because it's really hard to get out of long-term medication, but it's like minimal. And every time any stress comes up, which I've had quite a lot since I'm a single mom,
Yeah.
and had to go through all of the procedures that you go through when you have to separate. So all of that has come, and I haven't had a relapse through that time. So it's a combination of all of it, which has been the watering and the sunlight of my transformation.
That's amazing. And so I'm curious, since the theme really of this conversation has to do with power and how do we as women access and express our power. Would you say that you have found your power through this journey of yoga, and how would you define what power is, what living in your power means as a human being, I guess? And but because we happen to be women, as women.
So to me, power equates to choice. And what to unwrap your power is to be able to know what is going inside you. See, you can never change anybody outside. You cannot change the external circumstances, but what you can change is what you can do. And when you know that you have a choice for X or Y, then you feel empowered. Empowerment rather than power, which I did have when as a merchandiser, but I hardly felt empowered. I was
Oh,
running across the world to find right garments and stuff like that. And I had a high paying job, but I never felt empowered.
that I love that distinction that you're making because I think it's really helping us define what power is. So tell me more about the difference between having power or feeling that you have power and then being empowered. What's the difference then?
So I would define empower and power as empowered comes from within.
Yes.
It is it's not from your mind. Empowerment comes from your heart. And power is mostly from the mind and from external resources or external pleasures or environments. But empowerment is when you feel you here are completely aligned in your thoughts, in your speech, and in your action. And that's when empowerment, and then you make a choice from that place.
Right.
For me, that's empowerment.
I love this. I love this definition. Okay, it's very helpful. So if we go back to when we are not necessarily yet empowered, I want to explore a little bit more. You said when you might feel power, but it's still in your mind and dependent on external things. But in general, based obviously on your own experience and also your experience of working with other women, what do you observe is typically cutting us off from this capacity to feel empowered? What are the obstacles on our way?
For me, and I think this was the solution that I found for my healing journey, and I see this a lot with a lot of my students as well, is when you're conflicted, when you're feeling conflicted. Let's say, for example, you're taking a long bath after a long day. But while you're in the bath, you're thinking about, I have to feed the children, I have to finish off that email, I have to blah, 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 blah. And you're not fully there enjoying that moment for yourself or for self-care, and you're pulled in all different directions. You're still in control because you're the one who's making the dinner. You're the one you've got all the power. The child sleeps at the time you want them to sleep, and the boss will only move forward because of your work they've done. So you have a lot of power in that respect and control. But are you empowered because you're being pulled in different directions? No, because what are you experiencing? Well, that's what I used to feel was I felt guilty. I felt ashamed for spending all that time for myself. And also about the fact that nobody else can do a better job than me. This is what my mind was saying, that I'm in control, I'm in charge. And, but it still pulls me in different directions. So I think one of the biggest obstacle or challenges to being empowered from power is the conflict that you face from your internal to get from here to here, the obstacle that cuts you in between.
Yeah, I can so relate to this from my own experience. It's true. There is this sense of being really, you know, that's this little emoji where you have like a head and it's like exploding and there's like thousands of things coming out of it, right? Where you are in charge of so many things in your life that if people look at it from the outside, it looks like you're on top of, if not the world, at least you're like on top of your game and you're on top of your life. And the actual experience of that, the inner experience of that is that of a mess, and is of a perpetual tension, like mental tension,
Yeah,
with all the things that you are thinking of all the time.
exactly. And for that, to let go of that, um, to let go of that um, in charge feeling,
Yes.
it is really, really the most important ingredient for that is to have trust in your own abilities. It's
Yeah.
like if you're making a chicken curry, it's the chicken of the curry. The trust is literally the most important ingredient, along with all the other things, like you need the spices and onions and all that stuff. But if you don't have chicken curry, you can't have chicken curry. Or if you don't have chicken, you can't have chicken curry. So to
Yeah.
be empowered, you need to have conviction of your choices that you make.
Yes. We're going to go into this very shortly, because I want to, obviously, I want to go with you in details and like, how do we empower ourselves and what are, you know, I mean, I don't know if we can talk about the steps, because it's not like, you know, a magic recipe, like, you know, this is how you do it, but still we're going to try to map out this territory. Before we go there, in your practice, do you see that, because when we look at the statistics, we see that women are particularly impacted by a range of chronic conditions, right? Like more than men, right? So if we look at like autoimmune diseases, like I know that in the US, for example, it's 1 in 6 people, but 70 that are affected live with an autoimmune disease, but 75% of this population are women. And there's all these chronic pains, you know, like migraine, premenstrual syndrome, etc., that affect women very heavily. Can you maybe explain to us, or like, can you confirm to me, is that, does that have like a mental kind of cause? Is like it comes from all these physical ailments that we can struggle with, especially as women? Is that the direct consequence of this state of mind that you described, where we are conflicted inside and where we try to control everything and be in charge and manage so much that it's essentially impossible?
Yeah, I think the one of the problems, and the statistics are for mainly for the 21st century developed countries like Belgium,
Right.
like England, like the US. Um, it's mainly because of the fear of judgment. We're trying to be so many things because we need to abide by what my mom or my dad had asked me to do, and to achieve something, to be, I don't know if you watch this movie called Working Mums, or Mums, and the scene is that they're trying to be they're trying to have the best Christmas, so they put all the lights in, and each house has to be better than the next house, and the mums are going crazy trying to outdo the other mom. And that's the scenario that is in every way. My child is learning guitar, piano, she's on the top and doing this and doing that, and you're running from being an Uber driver from one place to another place, and then the second child comes in, and then you have to do your work, and then you have to make sure you're cooking dinner. But it's all keeping up with the Joneses attitude in the West that pushes us into this rat race of
Yes.
stress and disease. And the underlying cause of all of this is fear. What will happen if I don't do this? What, you know, those what if questions that come in your mind as a mom or a worker or whoever you are. And then you try to put all these hats back on and try to operate.
Yeah.
And you keep getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Migraine will come because you've got 10 hats on your head. Your shoulders start hurting, your back pain starts aching, you start feeling chronic fatigue, burnout, because you want to be in control, or at
Yeah.
least have the feeling of being in control.
Yeah. That is, yes, absolutely. And you know, for me, it's still, I mean, it took me a lot of time to realize how much of a control freak I really was. I really had no awareness of it until basically I almost had chronic fatigue. I mean, I had all of the symptoms from chronic fatigue. It took me, you know, I had to go until that point to realize how much of a control freak I was, because it wasn't the impression I had of myself, and it wasn't really the impression that most people had that would know me. But like, do you see that as well, that we are blind to our own, you know, we are convinced, especially you're talking about the psychology of the West, right? We are so convinced that we are free, you know, that we chose to have these children, we chose to have these careers, we chose to have these houses. It was the dream, you know, we wanted all these things. And like, still, it's a freaking performance, but we're not aware of that. We're convinced that, you know, all these things that, you know, all these boxes that we're ticking, this is success, this is what life is about, this is happiness, right? Having a beautiful house, having a beautiful family, and da da da. Like, I don't know, I'm not sure what the question is, but like, what, you know, this lack of awareness, because you'll probably confirm that you cannot change until you become aware, right? That this is the game that's happening and that's not working, right?
Mm.
Do you see, like, how do you see that people, or in women maybe in particular, like when you work with them, how do we become able to realize that, to disidentify from all of these roles? Like, are we open to hearing that even? Or do we go like, no, my migraines are not because of that, you know? I'm just, it's normal, I gotta work. Because I was like that. I was like, no, I gotta work, and I gotta be a mom, and I gotta do this, and I gotta do that, and just fix me, okay? I don't want to change any of this, or can't change any of this. Do you see that happening?
Yeah, so what one of the things yoga therapy and any traditional sort of lifestyle science always say is that um, you cannot treat a person until they want to be treated.
Right.
So I cannot go and, I mean, I see so many people walking down the road with a little limp or a little shoulder up or down. I just can't approach them and say, hey, listen, you've got a problem with your body, come and see me, and your mum a yoga therapist, until they have this need or this voice that comes from within that says, I need to shift something. And unfortunately, that voice comes when you get ill for a lot of people. So when there'll be a back pain, or when there'll be migraine, when there'll be something that that body starts to tell you at that point that something is not right. And then you go to the normal thing, you go to the doctor, you take the painkillers, and then it comes back again, and then you do the rat race again for maybe half a year, and then it comes back again. And when it keeps going on, this is what I see with my patients or my students, is that it comes to a point where and a lot of people go to a lot of different therapists and different fields before they finally find yoga. And what is my role as a therapist, or what I like to do, is have a partnership. It's not, I'm the therapist, you're the patient, you're there, you're there.
Yeah. Okay.
It's we are in this together. You've come to take help, but I can't help you until you're completely honest with me. And then I can give you, like I said, I can give you the tools, I can give you the water, I can give you the sunlight, but the seed is within you. And my job as a therapist is to blossom that seed that is within you, but together in partnership. So it's really important that we go hand in hand together in this journey. And it's a back and forth feedback that comes. And there's a connection there between the therapist and the student to move through this journey. And the minute you feel cared for, whether you have the right medicine or not, the minute you start feeling cared for, you start healing.
That is huge. And so it's a great transition to my next point, which was I want to ask you to show us basically what is the journey from the moment that you accept, right? That you become aware, meaning you are accepting that, okay, something in the way that I've been operating is not working anymore. And so I'm going to you, let's say, and saying, okay, I need help with that. I need support with that. What is the journey and what are the steps to going from I'm basically a stressed out, disconnected, control freak. I'm exaggerating here, but for the purpose of the, example, really stressed out, disconnected, basically suffering woman, to I am empowered, as you described earlier. What's the journey and what are the steps?
So the first step in this journey is taking an action. So you, like I said, the choice is really important. So you decide, okay, this is enough. I'm going to do something about it. Whether you go to a yoga therapist or an osteopath or whatever you decide, you make that choice to make a change. That in itself, the body gets the message. She's taking care of herself.
Yes, because that's what's interesting is it's a choice. So, it feels like it feels like you have agency now. You're taking charge, and it can feel almost like a sort of masculine initiative, but it's an initiative to take care of yourself. And I think that this is very, very hard for many of us, is to accept that I'm going to take action, but not to fix myself, heal not heal, but treat or fight or tame my disease or my pain or, whatever is bothering me, right? Just because we can have that as well, right? People who will come just fix my PMS, fix my migraines, this is not really the kind of action that will help you really get better, right? It's really more about almost like I'm ready to give up, I'm ready to change something really about how I approach life. Is that right?
Yeah. So to change behavior, because it's your behavior that, not your behavior, but whatever circumstances you're put in and then makes you have a behavior that leads to symptoms, it needs an intention. So
right.
You've got to have the intention to pay attention to yourself, to get healing. So when you start having an intention of even simple things like taking a long bath, that will start creating a shift within yourself, because you are telling yourself, because the mind is very clever, the heart is really clever, they know that, is it the doctor that has given you the pill that is making you heal, or is it you that is getting yourself better? So the doctor can give you the pill, but it's you who have to take the pill inside.
Right.
So to even begin healing requires self-care.
Self-care, yes.
And intention to have the self-care is the starting point.
And just to be clear, what you mean by self-care is not, because sometimes it's how it's understood now, it's how we practice it in our culture, is not like buying yourself, I don't know, a nice thing because I'm taking care of going for a manicure. It's not what you mean, right?
Self-care is individualistic. So you can have self-care there are like, if you want to go into a academic way of understanding self-care, there are about 50 definitions of self-care.
Exactly, right? And this is what I'm asking, because we talk now about self-care a lot, but to be honest, for many women and for many of us, it's like, yeah, what do they really mean by that? Self-care. Like, what does that mean? Yeah, does that mean like, yeah, I'm just basically, going for manicure or taking a bath or something? But it's more than that.
It can mean anything, and it can mean many different things to
Right.
individual. This is why it's all individualistic. The self-care would take you from a dysfunctional pattern to a functional pattern. So if you're in debt and you go retail therapy, that's not moving you from a dysfunctional pattern to a functioning way of living. If you're drinking 10 glasses of wine at night just because you want to numb everything down, that's not self-care. You might say, oh, give me pleasure, but it's not self-care.
Right.
So the key to self-care is that your intention is to pay attention to activities that move you from a dysfunctional way of behaving to a functional way of behaving.
Okay. Love this. And it reminds me of what the American writer Elizabeth Gilbert, she says about that. She says, I've learned to make the difference between the things that make me feel good and the things that will make me feel well. And
Exactly.
those are two very different things.
Exactly.
Like the wine will make me feel good in the moment, but the yoga or the whatever is going to make me feel well. And it's the more long-term usually, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's
great.
where the definition of well-being comes in as well. Because my company is called Well-being with a double E, because I visualized when you become a bee, you flutter around and you're attracted to what you're meant to be. So a bee that goes to a eucalyptus oil and gets a flower, eucalyptus flower, she'll just be, because she's free to be, fulfill its potential that it's meant to be.
Yes, if there's something about empowerment is really about freeing yourself, right? Which when you're caught up in all of the stress and all of the numbing strategies to get away from the pain, you're just stuck in this vicious cycle, right? Of like drinking or shopping or consuming in whatever form it takes. Okay, so the first step is to decide and take an action, right? Which is an act of self-care, to decide to take care of yourself, right? So, okay. So what would be then the next step on our journey then?
So the next mechanism that happens is when you initiate in such activities of self-care that moves you from a dysfunctional patterning to a functional patterning, then you start having experiences that, hey, you know what, that 10 minutes bath really helped me to calm down, or that 10 minutes of yoga practice that I did on the mat made me feel really calm, and my state of mind when I entered was feeling agitated, and now I'm breathing better, or I'm feeling a bit calmer and I can deal with my children a little bit more with patience. Then you start having those momentarily experiences. So you start having an experiential learning of these acts, which kind of strengthens your act of self-care. So then you do into another self-care act, and it becomes into a sustained attention of your intention.
Does that mean though that we do have to somehow make or respect this commitment a little bit over time, that even because I can feel really great after my yoga practice, and then the day after, my mind will be arguing 125 different things why really I don't really need to do it today, or I don't want to do it today, right? And this is actually something I'm curious about your experience and how you deal with that with your patients, because I mean it's very hard to establish a daily practice. It's just very hard to establish a daily practice, whether it's yoga or something else. Like, how can people, any women who's listening to this and going, oh, like from where I am, I cannot imagine, with my way of life and stuff, having a daily, sticking to a practice, to something.
So that's where, when I talked about this partnership that you have with your therapist, that's where that becomes very fundamental. Because if I give you a practice which is an hour and a half long, you've got 2 kids, you've got 10,000 things to do, and then on top of that it has static postures, and I'm a dancer, I'm a classical dancer. If I've been given a practice which is to sit down for 10 minutes with static posture, it'll drive me insane. It's not the right practice for me. So the connection, the understanding, and the partnership comes in the first step, when you meet your therapist, is to design a practice that suits you, resonates with you, it's in your context, and it's appreciating and respecting you as an individual.
Oh.
I can see who you are as a therapist. Sri T. Krishnamacharya always said, teach what is inside you, but as it applies to the person in front of you.
Yes.
So I might believe in God and you might not believe in God, but if I start harping on about believing in God, you're not going to connect, you're not going to resonate with that, and you're not going to do those practices. If you don't have an hour and a half to spend on the mat, you're not going to do it. You might do it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, but it's not going to last.
So does it mean that you can give a practice to somebody that will be 5 or 10 minutes and that they can fit in the morning before they go, or in the evening before they go to sleep, something like that, right?
Yeah. I've given practices that are for 5 minutes to people. I've given practices that had 0 physical postures to people and has nothing to do with what perception of yoga is. It's just walking. Walking is their practice. Or having a 10 minutes bath is their yoga practice.
Okay, so that means that you can give off the mat yoga, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
So
and the other thing I want to say about that is that this not fitting in the box is really important.
What do you mean by that?
So you don't have to, like I said, it's about freedom, it's about choice. And if you put yourself in a box and that I should be doing this, I should be doing that, again, you're going back into that control mentality.
Yes.
So being open and letting your heart experience is the awareness bit. So in the mechanism, first you get the connection, the heart to heart connection, then comes the self-care, and that leads to awareness.
Okay.
Awareness of what you feel. I'm feeling
that.
sad, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling, accepting it, not running away from it, but just accepting that you're actually not happy today.
Okay, great. So, and that's helpful, I think, also to explain, right? Because we often have the idea that whatever practice that we get into in order to feel better, to improve our health, our general level of well-being, etc. Again, I think probably a Western culture thing. We tend to think that, it's gotta be like hard and strong and long and, otherwise it's not worth it. So almost like if you're telling me, oh, you're really stressed and fatigued and you're a single mom and whatever, and I'm going to give you your practice, your first practice just going to be take a bath. I might even be like, that's not enough. Give me the, the big tough practice. So what you're saying is surrender to the practice that feels good to you, right? In a way.
Yeah, which moves you from a functional, a dysfunctional to functional. And the next step comes from what you're saying, because when you do, let's say you say, okay, you trust in yourself, you trust in the process, because it's your choice to come to a therapist, right? So you have to trust in yourself. So that's why I said you need that chicken before you start cooking the chicken curry. So you trust in yourself, and then you then you trust the process as well.
Right.
So if you do take that 10 minutes of bath and you're aware that, okay, I'm not feeling too happy today, or I'm really hyper today, and you do the 10 minutes, then you start feeling this experiential learning. Actually, I did feel good after that 10 minutes bath, and I didn't feel guilty about taking that 10 minutes bath because it's prescribed on my yoga prescription mat.
Right.
So the next step comes in this mechanism of towards empowerment is experiential learning from all the steps you're taking by taking care of yourself.
Okay. So by experiential learning, you mean I am starting to view things in a new way, in a different way, thanks to my practice, right?
Thanks to my efforts, your efforts.
Okay, great. And so what comes after that? Are we close to enlightenment then, or what else?
What did I say? My bio was what? A single mom and a human being.
And a human being. So yeah, so what comes after that, after the experiential learning?
As you go through this process, then you start feeling more agency about your choices, that you're making these choices are towards in your favor, not to please the next person, but it's to please you, to fulfill your purpose. Because remember, as a human being, we come on this planet. Number one is to suffer. Or we'll be all gods.
Yeah.
So we start to know that, okay, it's an illusion that I'm not going to suffer. You will suffer. So you will have the pain, you will have agitation, you will have stress. You can't eliminate that because you're a human being.
So that's normal. It's very good to say as well, right? It's not your fault, right? It's you are being human. If you are suffering right now, if you are freaking stressed, if you are struggling, you are just human. I think that's very important to say, because we also live in a culture of permanent optimization of self, where you have to be performing all the damn time. Okay, exactly. So you're suffering, you're normal.
You're a human being, so you're suffering, otherwise you'll be God. So then the judgment that you give yourself moves from judgment to non-judgment and into self-compassion. And the qualities of having agency and having resilience and having empowerment is to have compassion for yourself.
Okay, yeah, because that's huge. Because our typical view of what power means, we don't really see compassion and self-compassion in there at all. It's like, I'm powerful, I'm strong, I'm like the girl boss, and I got my business, whatever. It's not self-compassion. So what does that mean, and what does that look like? Self-compassion to yourself. Can you define that?
Self-compassion does have three aspects. Number one is to acknowledge that there is suffering, that you are stressed, that you are hurt, or you are depressed, or you are feeling restless. So recognize, which is why awareness is the previous steps before that. So you become aware that there is uncomfortableness, there's some sort of suffering. Then comes courage. You need to have the balls to accept that you're suffering and that you're going to do something about it.
So you recognize that you're suffering, and then you accept that you are suffering. And that is an act of courage, to fully accept and recognize, I am suffering right now. This is being difficult right now. Okay.
And then you do the third step is to do something about it. Take some action. That's where the choice comes. That's where empowerment comes. And then, okay, I'm suffering. I'm going to be facing it, and I'm going to do something about it.
Okay.
And then you can direct that attention into an action that nourishes you, that nurtures you, that, just like you would do if somebody's suffering on the road. What would you do? you would recognize that they're suffering.
Mhm.
You go up to them and help them. But we
Yes.
tend to, especially women, we tend to forget to help ourselves.
Yes.
We're making sure that our children gets their dinner while we haven't eaten for the whole day.
Yes.
We nurture and nourish everybody around us, but what about us?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the sort of self-sacrifice of so like that we do, so many of us. Um, yes. And you know, I have to share here that one of the practices that you gave me was a self-compassion practice based on exactly the structure that you described. And it was, I mean, almost life-changing for me. It was so good. So just to let you guys know, I had this very simple practice that Vidhi gave me where I was to, you know, lying down, tell myself like notice what is difficult right now, what is difficult today, you know, so notice that. And then you had me connect with all of the other people, women and others in the world who at this very minute are in the same suffering or are in similar situations, you know. So let's say, you know, today is so difficult because my kid didn't sleep well last night and I was woken up, you know, 23 times and I didn't sleep. Then, you know, I was connecting with all the moms who are not sleeping, who are sleep deprived. And I have to say, just that those steps were very, very, just very beneficial. I don't know, it really helped me feel so much better. And then the third step was to bring some kind of, so because you were saying the third step is to take action, but even on the mat, you can have this action, which is, well, I'm, you know, as I take a breath, for example, I'm imagining I'm bringing comfort to myself, or I'm bringing support to myself and maybe to all of the other women who I know are going through something similar at the moment, right? And that was so powerful. But again, I think it's amazing because it is not what we have in mind when we think of, I'm a woman and I want to tap into my power, I want to empower myself. I don't think about, oh, let's lie down and connect with what's difficult for me today.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
So you become from power to become empowered, and then there's self-discovery. The last step of empowerment is fulfilling who you really are. What is that seed? Without giving a damn about what the other person says, this is who I would like to be. And it's not being selfish. A lot of mum gets into the cycle, or women get into the cycle of, oh, I'm feeling guilty that I'm only thinking about myself. It's not that. It's your human right. It's your human right to take care of yourself. It's your human right to fulfill your purpose that you've come to this planet for.
Okay, so can you tell me more about this? Does it mean, I'm hearing there that there's almost in this last step, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a sort of, I'm going further than the roles that I am. So for example, up to now, I've been a mother, I've been a professional, I've been a wife, I've been a sister, I've been a whatever. And then what you're describing sounds like now I'm just being like the free agent that I have the right to be, right? So beyond all of my previous identities, is that right?
Exactly, exactly. And that doesn't have to be dictated by the norms of the societies. That's dictated by you from here. It's not from here, it's coming from here.
Mhm.
So even if you can't, I mean, there are a lot of people who can't leave a job that they don't enjoy. But if you spend half an hour, and well, that's what I did. I love dancing. So I was doing half an hour every Sunday, my Indian classical dance, and that fulfilled me. That totally
Mm.
fulfilled me because I was um, nourishing myself, my soul, and taking action to nourish my soul.
Okay, taking action to nourish your soul. So is that what it means to then to live your purpose, as you were saying? Because I know that this can create anxiety in many of us going, oh, now I'm supposed to realize my life purpose. But what is that? You know, why am I here? How do I know my purpose? So Is it something that's, definite somewhere like, oh, I should change my work and I should become a yoga therapist, or is it more what you are describing of in the moment, what feels good and true to me? I'm allowing myself to do it with almost with surrender and joy, right?
Exactly. So you just do moment by moment. Every moment you fulfill your purpose, whether it is the purpose of being a mom in that moment, you're fulfilling the purpose of a mom in the moment if you're not thinking about that email that you have to send out. But when you're sending that
Right.
email, you're not thinking about what to cook for the children. You're not conflicted like we started with the conflict. So
Right.
every moment you're fulfilling what you're meant to do. And then if you haven't discovered your soul purpose, that's fine. It'll come. It's to trust that moment, trust the process. Um, and just taking actions that in the moment don't are not conflicted between your mind, your speech, and your actions.
Okay, so that might be a very helpful sort of checking mechanism, right? To know whether I am empowered right now or not is to check for this sense of whether I have an inner conflict in some way in what I'm doing or not, right? And if I'm noticing my inner conflict, then I can somehow see, well, where can I let go, of one thing or the other so that I can fully accept the moment that I'm in, right? Does that,
Exactly,
okay.
exactly. And another checklist that is really helpful is to notice, again, awareness is really important, is this, am I doing this because I'm scared? Am I doing this because I want an outcome? Is there expectation out of it? Am I doing it because I don't like that person, so I'm going to do something? There's aversion there. Or am I doing it because I'm such a strong person and I have this ego that I have to fight for or whatever? So if an intention is riddled by any of these, and then ignoring, knowing all of this stuff is happening, that's another affliction that you may have in an intention. So if your intention has any of these five things to
Yeah.
start off with, to take any action, then you got to recheck, reset, and analyze, and maybe not take an action at that point. So no action is also action a lot of the times.
Oh, yes. I think especially for us women, right, is choosing to not do a lot of things will definitely be an empowering moment, right? Or choice.
Exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And when you
Okay.
have that, then it's all about making your body um, an environment which, when you have a dirty lake, all the dirty stuff comes in because it's conducive to bacteria, it's conducive to viruses, conducive to all the bad stuff. So your body is just like that. If you make your body conducive to bacteria by having stress, by having ego, by having expectations, by having judgments on yourself or fear, you're making your body that lake or that place that can attract disease, it can attract bacteria. So you don't
Yeah.
fight it, you just clean it up, and you just make that water pure.
Right, right. By noticing where is it that there is a conflict for me and how can I basically make peace here in one way or another, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but not being when there is this word, making peace can be taken, especially for
Okay.
women, in a very doormatty way. Oh, I'm just making peace
Oh
with
yeah.
my
No,
husband's behavior or
true.
whatever.
It's
So
not what I
that,
mean.
no, I don't mean um by just
Giving up.
giving up or being a doormat to something. I mean to be making a choice that is feels from here, not from here, and is not influenced by external factors.
Yes. And so to conclude on that, so if that was the last step of the process where we reach that capacity to empower ourselves, right? So what I'm hearing is that the last step of empowering yourself is fulfilling your purpose, but your purpose is actually not like this absolute thing that you are supposed to be carrying out. You don't really know how or what. It's actually in moment to moment learning to align your choice of action with what feels true and good for you, or the right thing for you in this moment, right? And so we can trust, if I understand well, we can trust that if we put our attention on this sort of moment to moment daily practice, using whatever we have at hand, right? Our motherhood, our work, current as it is, without changing it quite yet, at least, that we can trust that we will take small actions and our purpose will start unfolding from there. And we might more and more make maybe different choices, and maybe one day maybe we change, a job, or we make like bigger changes. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And sometimes it might not happen, and sometimes it may happen.
Yeah.
Life is evolving. So
Yeah.
your tools need to be evolving, your practices need to be evolving, and you evolve as a
Yeah.
person. So respecting, I think the key ingredient to purpose is respect,
Mm-hmm.
trust, and then comes courage to execute
Yeah.
the purpose. And it comes, it just, you know it. And honesty, you,
Mm.
you know when you're doing something wrong, you know inside you might do it, but you know there is not,
Yes.
something is not right. So if
Yes.
you're honest with your own consciousness, then
Yes.
you're aligned.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you so much for this. So I want to ask you, if there's any woman who is right now watching this or listening to this and feeling really unfulfilled, or feeling really stressed or exhausted or tired, and who knows like she wants more out of her life than, this sort of busyness and doing so much and being in control, but not feeling fulfilled, but like she doesn't know what to do or where to start. What would be your advice? Where can she start?
Have the intention to make a change.
To
Firstly,
have the intention to make a change.
if
Okay.
you're feeling restless or if you're feeling unfulfilled, have an intention to change that scenario, because no one else can change it other than you. You are the one, a woman can have babies, can nurse a child, can bring birth to, we are responsible for creating life here.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, give respect to that.
Yes. Okay.
So to make a change, respect yourself. Or if you want to change something, or if something doesn't feel right, tap into that womanhood that is there, which no one else can have.
Yeah.
When men can start delivering babies, fine, they're equal or they're the same as us, but
Yes.
they're not.
Yeah.
So tap into that fact that you do have that um, human right or birthright to
Yes.
take some action.
Right. And I guess that's exactly where empowerment starts, right? Is I am going to take whatever action is necessary to become happier, healthier, or more fulfilled, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And if you
Okay.
need facilitation of moving into that place, you can always contact me. I mean,
Yes.
they
So
can
tell
contact
me,
me.
where can people find you? Where can they learn more about your work? And if they want to contact you, where should they go?
So I'm in London, but I see students from all around the world, and I see patients with over Zoom, so you don't have to be in England or in London to
Yeah,
see
that's
me.
how we're doing it. And I'm in
Yeah,
Brussels. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you can contact me on my email. I guess you can give
I will
them my
put your
email address.
email. Okay. Yep.
And my website is www.wellbeing.net. And I'm quite active on my Facebook as well.
Okay.
So for
Okay, I'll link that.
any upcoming events or anything I've read or anything I find useful, I always put that on my Facebook. So you can always check out that. And then you can drop me a line.
Okay, beautiful. Well, Vidhi, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. I really, really loved it. And yeah, I really hope it will inspire and support whoever is watching us who was curious about this topic of power and empowerment. Thank you so much and have a beautiful summer.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. Have a
You're
lovely
so
summer
welcome.
too. Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.